Okay, so good day everyone. So for today's topic, we will discuss the statement of cash flows. So for the contents, next slide please. Okay, so for the contents, we will discuss the three classifications of cash flows, which are operating, investing, and financing activities. We will also discuss the interest and dividends, the presentation of operating activities under direct and indirect method, as well as the presentation of investing and financing activities. And lastly, the non-cash transactions. First, let me introduce to you the presenters. First, yours truly, Janelle Urbano. Second, Ms. ALESSA MINOY. And lastly, Mr. Ronaldo KAYABYAB Jr. Okay, so let's go on our introduction. Okay, so the statement of cash flows provides information about the sources of inflows and utilization or uses of cash and cash equivalents during the period. So sa statement of cash flows, doon natin makikita lahat ng report about the movement of cash ng isang entity for the period. Or dito din natin makikita lahat ng cash receipts or yung mga pumapasok na pera sa entity, and also yung mga cash payments o yung mga perang lumalabas sa entity. So bakit nga ba importante ma-monitor ng mga accountant as well as the business owners yung mga inflows and outflows ng cash? Ang cash kasi, 'di ba, ito yung pinaka-liquid na asset. 'Di ba? Kumbaga sa company, ito yung pwedeng kuhanin or nakawin ng mga employees. Ito din yung pinaka-importanting asset ng company kasi it is used sa operations. Next slide. Okay. The presentation of statement of cash flows reports three major activities. The first activity is operating activities. So operating activities are activities of an entity related to their main revenue generating activities of providing goods and services. So where can we usually see ba these activities in the financial statements? So makikita natin sila sa income statement at sa current asset and current liabilities ng statement of financial position. The second activity relating to cash flows is investing activities. Investing activities are activities of an entity related to sale and purchase of long-term assets and other investments. And saan ba natin usually makikita ang mga long-term assets and other investments? Siyempre, sa non-current section ng Statement of Financial Position. And lastly, financing activities are activities of an entity related to acquisition of funding for the use of the entity. And saan ba natin sila usually nakikita? Of course, sa non-current liability section naman ng Statement of Financial Position at sa equity. Next slide. Okay, so let's go on the examples of operating activities. So, paano pumapasok yung mga cash inflows ng operating activities? Tulad ng sinabi natin kanina or sinabi ko, anything related from sale of goods and sale of services. Yan yung mga nare-receive na revenue ng company from sales and service revenue. And also yung mga nire-return dahil sa yung mga dineliver nila na inventory is may sira. So bumabalik yung cash na binayad natin. So pag nire-refund po yung binayad natin, cash inflow po yan from operating activities. Now, cash outflows from operating activities includes payment to suppliers of goods and services. So pag nagbayad ang company sa suppliers para sa merchandise na pinurchase niya, cash outflow yon. And also, if we pay salaries, rents, utilities, and taxes, cash outflow din po yon. So sa payments of interest expense naman, kapag nagkaroon ang company ng utang, that is a way of an entity to finance their operations other than operating activities. So financing activities siya. Pero pag yung company is nagbayad na ng interest doon sa inutang niya, then yung interest is i-report sa operating activities. Again, yung mismong pag-utang ng company is financing activity, pero yung interest na binayaran natin sa inutang is operating activity. So payment for other operating expenses such as employee benefits, insurance, and the like is also an outflow from operating activities. Cash refunds to customers. So, tayo naman yung nag-refund sa kanila. So, outflow yon. And then yung mga charity contributions, cash outflow din yun from operating activities. Those are some of the examples ng operating activities. So, hindi siya limited lang dyan. Marami pa. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about investing activities naman. Sabi nga natin kanina, ang investing activities ay lahat ng makikita natin sa non-current asset section ng Statement of Financial Position. So mga PPE, intangible assets, investment property, etc. Kapag binenta mo yung mga yon, yung proceeds from that activity is cash inflow. Again, kapag binenta mo yung mga machineries, equipment, yung mga ganon, di naman nagagamit yung proceeds from activity is cash inflow. Okay, receipts from sale of investments in debt or equity securities. So pag binenta mo yung mga shares of stock mo sa ibang company, so syempre yung proceeds doon is cash inflow from investing activities. And also yung mga receipts from collections on notes receivable is also a cash inflow from investing activities. Now, kung tayo naman yung nag-acquire or bumili ng bagong property or plant and equipment or PPE, or di kaya nag-acquire tayo ng bagong investment in equity securities sa ibang company, hindi syempre maglalabas ka ng pera para mabili mo yung and yung payment to make loans to others, generally in the form of notes receivable, nagbayad ka ng utang. Those are cash outflows from investing activities. Next. Cash flows from financing activities. We usually see yung mga activities na yan under the non-current liability section of the Statement of Financial Position and sa equity activities. So paano tayo nagkakaroon ng additional cash or funds aside from selling of goods and services? So for cash inflows, we have the receipts from investments by owners, yung nagdagdag ng capital yung owner ng business, or di kaya pag nangutang yung company or yung business ng pera. That is under the cash inflows from financing activities. And then for cash outflows naman, withdrawals of the owners kapag nag-withdraw ng cash yung owner, or di kaya nagbayad na ng utang yung business, and then that is cash outflows from financing activities. So again, yung principal amount, yun yung na inutang mo, yun yung financing activities, pero yung interest na galing sa inutang mo, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, operating activities yon. So next slide na.
Okay. So dito na tayo sa number 1, cash flows natin. Option 1 natin is operating activity. Kasi class 7, paragraph 33 provides that yung interest income received, tapos sa number 2, interest expense paid, shall be classified as operating cash flows because they enter into the determination of net income or loss. So, yung option 2 naman nila, option 2 ng interest income received, which is the investing activity, classified siya sa investing activity because it is a return on investments. So, yung number 2, interest expense paid, option 2 niya is financing activity because it is a cost of obtaining financial resources. So, yung number 3, dividend income received, ang option number 1 niya is operating activity kasi dividend income received shall be classified as operating cash flow because it enters into the determination of net income. So, yung option 2 niya, investing activity, because it is a return on investments. So, sa dividend paid to owners, ang option 1 niya, financing activity, because it is a cost of obtaining financial resources. So, sa option 2 naman niya, ng dividend paid to owners, operating activity, in order to assess users to determine the ability of the entity to pay dividends out of operating cash flows. So, yung classification ng interest income received, interest expense paid, dividend income received, and dividend paid to owners shall be classified in a consistent manner from period to period as either operating, investing, or financing activities. So, kapag walang sinabi sa problem or silent yung problem, ibig sabihin wala siyang sinabi, ang gagamitin nyo is the option 1. And then, only interest and dividends received, yung na-receive lang or na-paid in cash lang are included sa statement of cash flows. For example, dividends declared in year 1 pero nabayaran in year 2, hindi siya included sa cash flows in year 1 and ire-report lang natin siya sa year 2 kung kailan nabayaran. So, only option 1 is available to financial institutions. So, ang ginagamit lang ng mga banks is itong option 1. And then, sa CPA board questions then, wherein the problem is silent, yung sinabi ko kanina, kapag walang sinabi, ang ginagamit ng entity, ang gagamitin mo is the option 1. So, i-memorize nyo ito. Next, operating activities in the direct method. So, cash flows from operating activities. So, isasama natin. Ano ba ulit yung sa operating activities? Included dito yung current assets tapos current liabilities. So, isasama natin dito yung cash receipts from customers. Less natin yung cash paid to suppliers for operating expenses. So, makukuha natin yung cash generated from operations, less mo yung interest paid, less income taxes paid to arrive the net cash from operating activities. So, mag-answer tayo. Sample problem natin. So, single company reported the following comparative statements of financial position and income statement for asset. Cash amounted to 3 million for 2019 and double 2019 amounted to 940,000, 2018 amounted to 350,000. Inventory 2019 amounted to 175,000. 2018 amounted to 100,000. Prepaid insurance natin is 15,000 in 2019 and 20,000 in 2018. And property, plant, and equipment natin, 2 million in 2019 and 2 million in 2018. And accumulated depreciation natin is 550,000 in 2019 and 500,000 in 2018. Patent, 40,000 in 2019, tapos 50,000 in 2018. Total assets natin is 5,620,000,000 in 2019 and 4,020,000 in 2018. So ang liability 2019 amounted to 170,000, 150,000 sa 2018. Accrued salaries payable 10,000 in 2019 and 15,000 in 2018. Income tax payable 350,000 in 2019, 250,000 in 2018. Unearned rent income 10,000 in 2019, 40,000 in 2018. Mortgage payable 500,000 2019, 500,000 2018. Share capital 2 million in 2019 and 2 million din sa 2018. Ang retained earnings natin is 2,555,000 in 2019 tapos 1,055,000 2018. Total liabilities and equity is amounted to 5,620,000 in 2019 and 4,020,000 in 2018. So next natin ang ating income statement for the year ended December 31, 2019. Sales natin amounted to 6,500,000. Cost of goods sold, inventory, January 1, 100,000. Purchases, 3,200,000. Goods available for sale is 3,300,000. Inventory natin December 31 is 175,000. Total of 3,125,000. Gross income natin is 80,000. So total income natin is 3,455,000. Sa expenses naman is salaries 950,000. Insurance 40,000. Other expenses 500,000. Depreciation 50,000. Amortization of patent 10,000. Interest expense is 55,000, amounted to 1,605,000. Income before tax 1,850,000. And income income tax 350,000. So net income natin is 1,500,000. Next, explain ko muna yung T account natin, simplest form of an account. So sa record all the money flowing into one account. Credit, record all the money flowing out of an account.
Linis ba ako? Okay. So, nakalimutan ko pala sabihin yung formula ng assets. So, yung assets natin is equals to liabilities plus equity. So, ulitin ko na lang yung account natin, yung T account natin. So, i-debit natin siya kapag record all the money flowing into one account. Yung mga pera na pumapasok sa account natin. Credit naman kapag lumalabas, flowing out of an account. So, pag nag-increase yung assets mo, nasa debit side. Pag decrease naman sa credit. Pag nag-decrease ang liabilities sa debit, pag nag-increase ang liabilities, credit mo siya. So, pag nag-decrease ang proprietorship due to pag nag-withdraw ang assets by the owner, withdrawal of assets by the owner is debit. I-credit po siya pag investment by the owner. Pag increase in expenses and losses naman is debit siya. Pag decrease in expenses and losses, credit side. Pag decrease ng income, debit mo siya, and pag increase naman ng income, credit side. Okay, next slide please. So, dito na tayo sa T-account method. Compute na natin ang sample problem ko kanina. So, accounts receivable natin. Ito yung T-account ng operating activities natin, which is ang kasama sa operating activities is current asset tapos current liabilities. Kapag financing naman, ang kasama doon is non-current liability and equity. Pag investing, ang kasama is the non-current assets. So, dito tayo sa operating activities. So, accounts receivable natin. So, debit side natin, yung accounts receivable beginning, which is 350,000. Yun yung nasa 2018. So, sales natin, which is nasa income statement, amounted to 6,500,000. So, credit naman natin yung accounts receivable ending, which is the 2019, amounted to 940,000. So, ang computations natin ng collections from customers, accounts receivable beginning ng 2018, amounted to 350,000. Sales natin, which is 6,500,000. So, ang total nun is 6,850,000. Accounts receivable ending natin is, which is in the year of 2019, 940,000. Less mo yun. So, ang collection from customers natin is 5,910,000. So, next slide, please. So, ang computation of cash receipts from other items of income natin, which is the rent income. So, rent income beginning natin amounted to 80,000 sa debit side. Debit side din ang unearned rent income ending natin 10,000. Credit natin ang unearned rent income beginning amounted to 40,000. So, nag-arrive tayo sa rent received na 50,000. So, ang computations, rent income 80,000 plus unearned rent income ending 2019 amounted to 10,000. Total natin yun, nakuha ang 90,000. Less natin yung unearned rent income beginning ng
Now we will
2018,
proceed to adjusting entries relating to
50,000.
accruals.
So, yun ang rent receipt natin. Next slide na tayo. So, yung pinapakita ko palang key account method, i-memorize nyo yun kung saan nakalagay yung debit side sa credit side, para mabalance nyo yung amount niya. So, yung accounts payable na yan, hindi na pwede ilagay yan sa debit side. Kasi ang normal balance ng accounts payable is credit. So, dapat ilagay natin yung accounts payable beginning natin, 150,000 credit. So, purchases natin na makikita sa income statement amounted to 3,200,000. Tapos, accounts payable naman natin, debit side, 170,000. So, nakuha natin ang payments to merchandise creditors, 3,180,000. So, yan ang computations niya, 150,000 sa accounts payable beginning ng 2018. So, purchases, 3,200,000. Total mo, 3,350,000. Ililess mo yung accounts payable ending ng 2019, 170,000. So, ang payments to merchandise creditors is 3,180,000. So, wait lang. Yung sa accounts payable beginning natin, 2018 yan. So, ang ending natin is 2019. Kasi yung ending natin sa 2018, gagamitin siya sa beginning ng 2019. So, next slide. So, sa T-account method natin ng cash paid to employees, so accrued salaries payable. Credit side natin, yung salaries, amounted to 950,000. So, credit din yung accrued salaries payable natin na beginning na 2018, 10,000. So, i-credit mo, i-debit mo yung accrued salaries payable natin na ending amounted to 25,000. So, yan yung computations niya. Salaries, 950,000. Accrued salaries payable ng 2018, 10,000. Total mo yung 960,000. So, accrued salaries payable ending natin is 25,000. So, ang nakuha natin is salaries paid, 935,000. Next slide. So, prepaid insurance naman tayo. Beginning natin, debit side. Prepaid insurance beginning natin, 20,000. Credit natin, insurance, 40,000. Tapos, prepaid insurance ending credit din, 15,000. So, yun ang computations niya. Insurance, 40,000. Additional, prepaid insurance ending 2019, which is 15,000. Total natin, 55,000. Ilalast natin yung prepaid insurance beginning, 20,000 para makuha yung insurance paid na 35,000. So, next slide. So, sa accrued interest payable. So, interest expense natin, credit side, 55,000. Credit side din yung accrued interest payable beginning, 15,000. Debit side natin yung accrued interest payable ending natin, 10,000. So, computations, interest expense, 55,000 plus accrued interest payable beginning natin ng 2018, 15,000. Total mo yun, 70,000. Less mo yung accrued salaries payable na ending, 10,000. So, ang interest paid natin is 60,000. Next slide, please. So, income tax payable. So, computation tayo ng income tax payable. So, credit mo yung income tax amounted to 350,000. Credit mo din yung income tax payable beginning, 250,000. So, ang ending niya, income tax payable, the debit side mo siya, 350,000. So, ang computation natin is income tax, which is 350,000, plus income tax payable beginning, 250,000. So, total mo yun, amounted to 600,000. Less mo yung income tax payable, 350,000. So, ang payments for income tax natin is 250,000. So, ito na yung direct method, creating activities natin. So, yung kanina na na-receive natin, cash received from customers amounted to 5,910,000. Yung rent received natin kanina na na-complete natin is 50,000. Cash payments to merchandise creditors, less natin yan, 3,180,000. Less din natin yung salaries paid, 935,000. Less din yung insurance paid, 35,000. Less din yung other expenses paid natin, 500,000. So, ang cash generated from operations natin is 1,310,000. Less natin yung interest paid, amounted to 60,000. Tapos, income tax paid amounted to 250,000. So, ang net cash provided by operating activities natin is amounted to 1 million. So, yung pinakita kong key account kanina, i-memorize nyo kung nasaan yung, kung anong ilalagay nyo sa debit side tapos credit side. So, kailangan natin i-memorize yun para hindi kayo malito, para ma-balance nyo siya. Okay? So, thank you.
So first is the indirect method. When we say indirect method, the indirect method adjusts accrual basis profit or loss for the effects of changes in operating asset and liabilities and effect of non-cash items. So in other words, when we say indirect method, ito yung adjustment of net income with changes sa balance sheet accounts to arrive at the amount of cash generated by the operating activities. So an example of an operating activities section of a statement of cash flows presented using the indirect method is shown in the next slide. So next slide po. So first is let's go to the cash flows from operating activities presented using indirect method. First is the profit before tax. Then let's go to the adjustment for the depreciation, add the foreign exchange loss, deduct the investment income, and add the interest expense to and get the total of it. Tapos yung increase and trade and other receivable, we should deduct it kasi nga yung increase in trade and other receivable in the guidelines, it should be deducted because it has an inverse relationship. Tapos yung decrease in inventories naman, i-add siya. Tapos decrease in trade payables, i-add ulit siya. Tapos cash generated from operations, i-add. Tapos let's go to the interest paid, it's deducted. And yung income taxes paid naman deducted to get the net cash from operating activities. So let's go to the next slide, which is the general guidelines in converting accrual basis profit to cash. First is the non-cash income. Unrealized gains recognized in profit or loss or amortization of discount on notes receivables and investment in bonds and amortization of premium on bonds payables are deducted from accrual basis profit because these items increase accrual basis profit but they do not affect cash. So yung sa gain on sale naman on operating of non-operating assets such as property, plant, and equipment and investments other than held for trading securities are deducted from accrual basis profit because these items increase accrual basis profit but they pertain to investing activities. When we say non-cash expenses, these are added or these are added during doon sa using the indirect method. So let's go to the Let's go to the next slide, non-cash income. So the non-cash expenses naman, unrealized losses recognized in profit or loss or amortization of discount on bonds payables and amortization expense and impairment losses are added to accrual basis profit because these items decrease accrual basis profit but do not affect cash. Losses on sale of operating assets such as property, plant, and equipment and investment other than held for trading and securities are added to the accrual basis profit because this item decrease and accrual basis profit but they do not pertain to the investing activities. When we say non-cash expense naman, these are yung mga when computing the adjusting the accrual basis of the profit or loss, it should be deducted pag non-cash in ayun, baliktad pala yung nasabi ko. On the other hand, when we say non-cash income, those are deducted. Yung number 1 guideline, those are deducted. Sorry. Yung non-cash expenses naman, those are added. Sorry guys if nalilito kayo. Ulitin ko na lang. When we say non-cash incomes, those are deducted. While non-cash expenses, those are added. So on the third guidelines, next slide. Increases in operating current assets except cash and cash equivalents such as trade accounts and notes receivables, inventory, and prepayments are deducted from accrual basis profit. Di ba pag we are doing the cash flow na, yung using that indirect method, yun yung yung mga current asset, di ba pag nag-increase siya, ang gagawin natin, we should subtract it to get di ba, sinasubtract natin yung mga, just like yung doon sa cash flows from operating activities kanina, increase in trade and other receivable, di ba nakasubtract siya or nakadeduct siya. So pag increase sa mga operating current assets, nagde-decrease siya to get yung total net income. So number 4 naman, decrease in operating current assets except cash and cash equivalents such as trade accounts and note receivable, inventory, and prepayments are added to accrual basis profit. Kung decrease naman siya, ang gagawin, kung decrease siya, ang ginagawa naman natin, di ba, i-add natin doon to get the total net income, ina-add natin siya. Kasi nga, when we say increase in operating current asset, yung number 3, meron siyang deducted, it is an inverse relationship. While on the decreases in yung decreases naman in operating current asset also, it is an, di ba, pag decrease ina-add siya kasi nga may inverse relationship siya within yung sa current asset. That's number 5, increases in operating current liabilities such as trade accounts and notes payables, accrued expenses, and unearned income are added to the accrual basis profit. Dito naman, this has a direct relationship naman siya. Pag increases, increase rin yung ina-add rin siya doon sa accrual basis profit. Yung number 6, decreases in operating current liabilities such as trade accounts and notes payables, accrued expenses, and unearned income are deducted to accrual basis profit. So, ang ano dito, ang way dito is when we say pag mga current assets, when it's increased, doon naman pag sa adjusting na ng accrual basis profit, dinidecrease siya pag asset. While on the liabilities, kung increase siya, added siya. It has a direct relationship. While on the other hand naman, pag assets, it has a inverse relationship. So let's go to the next slide. So investing and financing activities, the choice between direct and indirect method of presentation is applicable only for operating activities, pag direct or indirect method. While on the investing and financing activities naman, gross cash receipts and gross cash payments for the related transaction are presented separately unless they qualify for the net presentation. Pag mga financing and investing activities naman, we use the accounts. So let's go to the next slide. So first is the property, plant, and equipment. Di ba ang beginning niya nasa debit side. So first is let's get the beginning inventory niya. Tapos yung acquisition nasa debit side, left side. Tapos on the credit side naman, this is the disposal to get the inventory and the ending. Yun yung ending inventory is on the credit side. Pag accumulated depreciation naman, the beginning is on the credit side. Tapos get the depreciation, and then yung disposal naman nasa debit side. Parang siya, inverse relationship siya doon sa property, plant, and equipment. And yung ending naman nasa debit side. So when it comes to the retained earnings, the beginning balance is on the credit side. Tapos, syempre, there will be a dividends declared. Yun, nilalagay sa debit side. And the profit or loss is on the credit side to get the ending of the retained earnings, which is on the debit side. While on the dividends payable naman, on the beginning is in the credit side. Tapos, we should add the dividends declared and then subtract the dividends paid to get the ending on the debit side. Pag dividends payable kasi ang parang normal balance nun is the debit side. While on the retained earnings also is on the debit side. So, let's go to the next one, the non-cash transactions. Ayun. The statement of cash flows is prepared using cash basis. Under the cash basis of accounting, income is recognized only when collected and expenses are recognized only when paid rather than when these items are incurred or earned. Accordingly, only those transactions that affected cash and cash equivalents are reported in the statement of cash flows. Non-cash transactions are excluded and disclosed only. So for example dyan is, for instance, when an entity buys a building by paying a cash down payment and issuing a note payable for the balance. So di ba, may cash down payment. Yun lang yung ilalagay sa cash flow. While yung yung note payable, it is not it is a non-cash transaction kasi notes nga yung pinambayad. So, ang ibig sabihin nun, it is disclosed. The issuance of note payable is disclosed as a non-cash transactions. So, examples of non-cash transactions are excluded from the statement of cash flows are: first is the acquisition of non-cash asset by issuance of notes payable or disposal of non-cash asset in exchange for a receivable. Next is the acquisition of non-cash asset in exchange of another non-cash asset for by issuance of equity instrument. So, 'di ba, doon sa equity instrument pa lang, doon na natin malalaman na walang cash na involved. Letter C, declaration and issuance of property of stock and dividends. So, declaration lang naman siya ng stock, 'di ba? Pag stock hindi naman actually pera yun. Hindi naman actually cash yun. Kasi first of all, declaration pa lang naman siya. Tapos yung letter D naman, it's a declaration of cash dividends but paid in the subsequent year. So, hindi pa siya non-cash transaction on this day kasi on the next year or the subsequent year mo siya malalaman, ma-define as a statement of cash flow na siya kasi nga 'di ba subsequent year pa naman yun. Tapos receipt of subscription for equity instrument but collected in succeeding year. So yung next year yun yung ilalagay na statement of cash flows. So when preparing a statement of cash flows, we should include only those transactions na nag-affect ng cash and cash equivalents. Yung mga example ng purchase of asset by paying cash or something, basta paying cash. While exclude transaction naman, yun yung not affected cash and cash equivalents by, for example, purchasing a building by issuing a note payable. Matik yun na it is an example of a non-cash transaction. So, yun lamang.
Thank you. See you on Monday. Bye.